Joe Buddens SECRET sponsored revealed. And Joe Budden checks Melissa Ford. That's right, y'all. I think we just did the science on who might be sponsoring the Joe Budden podcast, and we had no idea until now. First, I want to thank the engineer, who was the one who did the science. He has his own YouTube channel called The Engineer. I will clip it in the top comment. So for those of you that don't know, it's been a big secret about how Joe Budden makes money for the podcast. And one of the biggest secrets is if Sleepers is bought and paid for. Well, it seems like the engineer did the science and he looked at who's been being played as Sleepers on the Sleepers segment, and a lot of artists come from the Def Jam record label. So you're talking about people like August 08, Connie Diamond, Friday, Chase Shakur, Ray Khalil, Zay France, and Stonebwoy, Vanilla is Black, Genia, Justin Martin, Michaela Janae, Davian Ferris. But it's not just the people that they're playing in Sleepers. There's been a bevy of guests that they've had that come from Def Jam. We're talking about people like Money Long, Rhapsody, Fredo Bang, LL Cool J. And if you go on their website, you can see all of these artists are coming from Def Jam. Now, I think the case is broke wide open, but we also have to look at the legacy of Sleepers on the Joe Budden podcast. It's been something he's been trying to get sponsored for a long time, even dating back to the Rory and Mal days. Remember that whole Rory Joe Budden title playlist thing that caused a big kerfuffle? And then on top of that, we all know Ice had a situation where it was discovered that he charged someone for a sleeper.
He paid for a sleeper.
So you paid Ice to get the sleeper on, and he still didn't pay it.
And Joe Budden kind of confronted him on the show. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, Danny, it wasn't a confrontation, but it was. Because if you remember that episode, Joe Budden told Ice, hey, if you do sleepers, I would hope it's part of a budget and not some mamby-pamby operation. And what does this Def Jam thing look like? It looks like it's part of a budget. It looks like it's being strategically structured into the podcast. Kind of like an ad buy. Like, oh, we'll integrate it into the episodes, but we won't make it so hot. Each person on our show will play a different Def Jam record. And as a result, maybe Joe's, kicking money back to the people who play the Def Jam Sleepers. So let me know what you think in the comments. I think Sleepers is a great way to get the show monetized and a great way to also get monetized while not having to use ads. Because if you look at the audio experience of the Joe Budden podcast, you can listen to the show on Spotify, Apple, no ads whatsoever. There's literally no ads that are integrated, no sponsored ad insertion, no SAI.
So what is dynamic ad insertion? It is a term used to describe the process of integrating ads into digital content.
Every other podcast, you listen to them, Black Effect, Charlemagne's podcast, there's an ad. Oh, listen to this credit card ad right here. Oh, listen to this ad about cars or all this other stuff. McDonald's, Rory and Mal have a bunch of ads now.
Online gambling is at its highest, and we know for a fact that we are going to have 1 million degenerate gamblers within 5 years, especially the younger kids.
5 minutes later.
Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code RoryMall for a shot at a huge cash prize. That's code RoryMall only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem?
But the Joe Budden podcast, both in audio and on his Patreon, there's no ads. Yes, there's prize picks, but even that's kind of integrated into the show where they get to add their own sauce and make things a little bit more digestible for the listeners. But this isn't the only thing that's going on with Sleepers. There's something I noticed, and shout out to the engineer once again. He's doing a lot of science. He put me on to a lead. He was talking about how Melissa Ford's sleeper account, remember, she had a sleeper account where she posted, her sleepers, the songs that she wanted all of us to listen to, and she was monetizing this content and posting songs that she feels were slept on. And it used to be called Melody's Sleepers or Mel's Sleepers. And now it's called Melodies times Mel. So I believe that Melissa Ford was approached by members of the Joe Budden podcast, presumably Ian, because I think he's the only one that would do this, or maybe Keeb, and told, hey, bro, you can't be taking our IP. You can't be doing all that. This is my segment. Change the name. Because people think they're buying something affiliated with the Joe Budden podcast, but they're not. They're buying something affiliated with you. And if you look at the legacy of Sleepers, there's also been other people on the show who have taken their own version of the Sleepers and put it on their podcast. First, there's Rory and Mal. My Karma is Beautiful. That is a straight legacy to the Joe Budden podcast. Then, there's Bridget and Mandy, Freshly Squeezed. Another carbon copy of the Sleeper segment. So, what we're seeing here is I think Joe is fed up. You guys keep taking my sauce. And with Melissa Ford, we saw another attempt to take the sauce. And if you also look at Melissa Ford's account, that is Sleepers, her version of Sleepers, Melodies, you see that she's doing it with a company called The Hype Now. And it looks like a small company, but they only got like 674 followers on Instagram. And it appears that they run her ads for the Sleeper segment. And they also do work with a lot of models. Tyson Beckford, Yara Shahidi, Justin Bieber. I don't know if they're really connected with these folks or if they're just like a derivative. But those are the people that run her account. But let me know what you think. Now that you listen to Sleepers and you know that they're not necessarily authentic anymore. Who knows if they've ever really been authentic. That they're more so an ad, a vehicle for the companies, the music industry that Joe Budden rages against. Are you going to listen to them? I know there's a lot of folks who hate Sleepers. As soon as the Sleeper segment starts, they turn off the show. But I do think in the Rory and Mal era of the Joe Budden podcast, Sleepers were the best. Rory was really good at knowing which artist to play. I don't think he was doing ads. I think Ice has been doing ads since the moment he got there. And Flip as well. Ice and Flip used to play the worst music I've ever heard. I'm talking about legitimate trash. But we'll see how this goes. Alright, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, TheStopTV. Follow me on Twitter, TheStopTV. Make sure you tap in with my Patreon, The Stop. And also my Reddit, Joe Budden Network. We just hit 21,000. We keep growing, man. Alright, y'all. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.